Good afternoon, call my cougars, and especially my Jedis. Today we're going through read chapter 22 of Small Spacers. Remember where we left off. Ollie got lost in the corn maze and she couldn't find her friends, but she was relying on her watch, for her mom had sent her a compass telling her in or out, O and I for which way to go. And she decided that she could be brave and help her friends. Chapter 22 is a long one, guys. Ollie walked through the corn for hours. There were lots of scarecrows, and more seemed to appear as she went on. Though she never saw their heads move, they always watched her come and they watched her go. Sometimes she would call for Brian and Coco. No one answered. Ollie stopped once to drink from her water bottle. It was half empty. She got cold, kept moving, wishing for pizza. It was definitely afternoon, but no countdown had appeared on her watch. Just the directions leading her into the maze. In and steadily in. The sun had begun to fall towards the horizon in a low autumn arc where she heard a new sound in the corn, like something big was moving through it. Then a long, slow breath. Ollie froze. It sounded like a huge dog breathing. Definitely not the sound of a scarecrow. The steps were getting closer, and Ollie crept between two stalks of corn and hid. A creature came snuffling down the long line of the maze. Ollie didn't realize she was biting her lip until she tasted blood. It was a dog, sort of. It had the coat and color of mushrooms, the snout like a hound, paws like a cat, and perfect eyes of a perfect egg white. Its sides went in and out, and its breathing was louder than the corn stalks. It made Ollie think of a minotaur in a labyrinth. The beast came closer, growling low on its chest. It paused, sniffed the air, sniffed again. Its ears swiveled towards Ollie. And then it peered down the corn stalks and saw her. She stared into the eyes white as two cooked eggs, and she could barely breathe. The beast didn't move, but it growled again. Come out, little girl, come out. Talking like a person? The egg of an edge of a fang just showed beneath its lip. Ollie tried to think. Those eyes, that voice, were they familiar? She'd seen Egg White's eyes before. She'd seen them pressed against the bus window, watching her, just like they were doing now. At night, they'll come for the rest of you. She swallowed, and then she spoke, squeaking. Are you the bus driver? The beast didn't answer directly, but its mouth dropped open, panting. She saw the red tongue, the red lips. Come out, the beast whispered again, and this time reached out with a stealthily clawed foot. Ollie jumped back, and then on a surge of fear and desperation, wrenched around and dug into her backpack. She scrabbled out of her lunchbox in a burst of courage, thrust her way out of the corn, held out two of her dad's peanut butter cookies, and said, Don't you dare touch me. I gave you food once before. Do you want some more? She hoped she was right. She prayed she was right. Her hand holding the cookie shook. The beast had stepped back. It shut its mouth and eyed her. Its tongue flicked out, and as though tasting the air. He clicked his chops. His tongue darted towards the cookies. Ollie stepped back. No, she said. You have to trade for me, remember? Silence. Then a hoarse, deep voice crept out beneath the beast's teeth. What trade, little girl? If her classmates were scarecrows, Ollie thought a little hysterically, then it wasn't too strange that the bus driver was a giant wolf creature. Ollie said, Where are my friends? Lost, said the wolf. Lost until dark, and then scarecrows. Ollie broke off a piece of cookie and fed it to him. He licked it up surprisingly delicately. Do you know where they are? Yes. She fed him another piece, thinking. Her watch would get her into the center of the maze, but Brian and Coco. Ollie closed her fist on the remains of the cookies. She said, I'll give you the rest. I'll give you all the food I have if you go find my two friends, Brian and Coco, and bring them to the center of the maze before dark. If, Ollie added hastily, you don't hurt them on the way. It won't help, breathed the creature. Even if you all get to the center, what he has, he holds. We'll see, said Ollie, and held out her cookies. The creature snapped them up, then practically inhaled the rest of her food, and Ollie, a little forlornly, put her empty lunchbox back into her backpack, hoping she'd done the right thing. The beast licked his chops. He doesn't feed me good things, he said. Only souls sometimes. The used up ones, dry as dead corn. Without another word, the creature turned and stalked away. It was almost dark when the corn finally ended. Ollie found herself on the edge of an open space, the middle of the maze. The open space was full of scarecrows. They stood in ragged rig, arms stretched out. Their big garden tool hands seemed to reach for her. Many of them, she recognized her classmates, horribly changed. She saw the two scarecrows in black suits from those moments in Kathy's house, Caleb and Jonathan. Perhaps she was imagining, but there was almost seemed to be a look of pleading on their faces. All those blank, sewn-on faces. It's the very center of the maze was a platform like a farmer might use to keep an eye on the corn. Ollie couldn't see the top of it. A ladder led up to a hole in the center. Scarecrows glared, sightless, yet somehow seeing. Ollie thought she saw two women, the ghosts of Beth and Kathy, hiding among the scarecrows, watching. A living girl, the whisper seemed to rise from the corn itself. A living girl, here. Ollie took a deep breath and walked past the scarecrows. She walked all the way up to the ladder that led to the center of the tall platform, and she began to climb. Halfway up, Ollie looked back. All the scarecrows were watching her. Ollie's fingers tightened convulsively to the ladder rings. Then she called down, "I'm going to go home, and I'm going to save you all." Then she climbed up to the top. Ollie didn't know what sort of thing she was expecting on the platform in the middle of a haunted corn maze. Horrors for sure, though she was almost too exhausted to be frightened. It was going to be dark very soon. An ugly red dish light bathed the scene. "My," said a gentle voice, "all this ray, right to the center and before dark? I'm impressed." Ollie peered into the shadows, gathering the platform, and could hardly believe her eyes. "You! Who'd you expect?" asked Seth. His pale hair caught the last of the light. His eyes were deep, and his smile was as lovely as they'd been on Misty Valley Farm. Behemoth the cat sat at his side, watching the lamp-eyed in the almost dark. "You're the smiling man," said Ollie. She could barely believe it. "I thought," she imagined a skull smile, a pumpkinhead smile, a scarecrow smile. She had not imagined a kind smile, the sort you would make a scared kid not be scared anymore. "I am," said Seth. He was wearing his jeans, his flannel shirt, just like he was about to go milk the cows. But there were no cows. Instead, he was sitting on the platform at dusk with 100 scarecrows at his feet. The cat twined around him, never taking its eyes off of Ollie. "Your cat," she whispered. Seth smiled. "My servant. Cats are convenient. They go between worlds, their nature unchanged, the only creature that can. How do you think I kept track of you?" Ollie remembered Coco thinking she'd seen an animal. Remembered Brian wondering if he'd imagined a creature's footsteps. "The bus driver?" she asked, voice flat to stop from shaking. His ordinary smiling face frightened her more than any number of ghosts. "My hound," said Seth, and shrugged dismissively. "I sent him to bring you to me. Folk can wander this maze until they die. It's bigger than it seems. Rather surprising you avoided him and came to the center on your own. Shame on your poor friends. You made that deal with Jonathan 100 years ago more." "I did," said Seth. "Why? Why not? Why scarecrows then?" He shrugged. "No one notices them in the sunlit world. They have hands. They are useful. They can be my eyes and my ears. And since they neither flesh nor spirit, they can be my doorway." He grinned. "Also, they're frightening, and I do love that." "Miss Webster knew who you were," Ollie pursued doggedly, trying not to hear the sound of the scarecrows moving. "She was scared of you." "Scared of me?" said Seth. He laughed, not kindly. She was more afraid of the future. Her farm was about to go under. She was going to prison for fraud. All her pretty dreams sold in a bankruptcy court, and all her sunlit life and nature cut short by bars. "I'll do anything," she said. I told her what she had to do if she was to save her farm for her, save the freedom for her. How she wept when I told her. She paid the price, mostly. She neglected to get rid of the book. "We were the price," said Ollie. "The 6th grade?" The day was nearly done. "Of course," course. Although I did wonder if there would be someone clever enough to avoid the scarecrows. I'd even had my hound warn you. I wanted to know if there were any clever children. I thought you might be one of them. He bowed, and the moment looked old-fashioned but strangely natural, despite his flannel shirt and jeans. Although, little thief, I suppose Beth's book helped. His face showed a flash of malice. He really wanted that book destroyed, Ollie thought. I don't want congratulations, Ollie snapped. I just want to go home. Of course, said Seth, surprising her. You have made it to the center of the maze. Don't you want your reward? Sure, said Ollie. Send us home. All of us. Seth smiled at her, a charming, boyish smile. Then his grin stretched and stretched again, as wide as the cat in Alice in Wonderland's adventure. It so wide, it literally stretched from ear to ear, like dead Beth Webster. Ollie screamed at him, screamed with a mix of terror and rage. Don't you dare try to scare me. Don't you dare. Seth stepped back laughing. Lighten up. Why not when it's fun? I've been scaring you for days. I'm not tired of it yet, he sobered. See, girl, you say you want to go home. I know you do, but it's not the thing you want most in the world. I know it. Tell me what you want most, Olivia Adler. I'm not in the business of granting second-rate wishes. Before Ollie could answer, two things happened. Ollie's watch chimed. It was night, and from below the platform came the sound of two people shouting. Ollie's breath seemed to fail in her throat. She looked over the platform edge just in time to see the huge dog that had been the bus driver herd Brian and Coco to the center of the maze, snapping and growling. The scarecrows clicked their garden tools together like they were applauding, and then they seized Brian and Coco and held them tight. Let them go, Ollie cried. How dumb was she, trusting the beast who had been a bus driver just because he liked her dad's cooking? Seth smiled at her sweetly this time, not with a skull grin like before. Gladly, he said, but is that really what you want most, clever girl? Decisions, Miss Adler. Do you want to go home safely with your little friends, or do you want... He trailed off, head cocked as though listening. Ollie began, but then the words failed her. A voice called from the corn, a voice she had known she would never hear in her whole life again. Olivia, it called. Olivia, where are you? Ollie froze. Brian and Coco were thrashing in the scarecrow's grip, but Ollie stopped seeing them. She couldn't see anything at all. She could only listen for all she was worth. Mom, she cried. She sprung towards the edge of the platform. Not so fast, came Seth's voice sharp now from behind her. Ollie whipped back towards him, panting. You've seen I have the goods. Now let's bargain, Olivia Adler. What will you give to have your mother back? Below her, both Brian and Coco were shouting her name, but she ignored them, straining to hear what other beloved voice. Sweetheart, please, it's so dark, her mother right there. For a moment, Ollie forgot Brian and Coco and even forgot her father waiting for her somewhere beyond this nightmare. She wanted her mom. The smiling man brought Caleb back. Seth brought Caleb back. He could do it. What do you want, she asked. For you, brave girl, Seth said gently. Not much at all. I'll let you go, you and your mother. You can even take your two friends with you. 4 lives, not bad, But you can't have the rest. Mustn't be greedy. Leave the rest and you drop the book in the river. I'm tired of Beth Webster's ghost. And one day, a long time from now, when I knock on your door, you have to let me in. That's what I call a good deal. His eyes were earnest and kind. Wild thoughts whirled through Ollie's brain. Brian, Coco, they could all escape together. She would come back from this nightmarish place holding her mother's hand. Beth Webster's book lay heavy in her pocket. She thought of Caleb and Jonathan, a drowned man breathed back to life would look like him. Ollie swallowed hard, then she turned back to the smiling man. Okay, she said, shaking. Fine. I say yes. How do the 4 of us get home? He smiled. The maze is the door. One of the exits will take you back into your own world, but only I know which. Make a deal and I'll show you the way. It's a deal, Olivia Adler. He put out his hand. Olivia, called her mother's voice. Olivia didn't take the hand. I don't want Brian and Coco, she said. They're annoying. I want Jenna and Lily, but they're scarecrows. How do I take them with me? You promised 4 lives. Seth shrugged again. Miss for capturing, water for fleeing. Leith Creek runs my world and yours. Let the scarecrows touch the water and they'll be as they were. Now shake. Until the mist becomes rain, Ollie thought. She was gripping the watch on her wrist, white-knuckled. Tears still ran freely down her face, but she managed to smile. No thanks, she said. Seth stilled. The whole field seemed to hold its breath. But now I know how to get out of here, she added. So thanks for that. The cat yowled. Olivia! Screamed her mother's voice, loving and desperate. It sounded like she was directly below her. Ollie was clasping at her watch at her wrist so hard that the metal bit into her palm. That's not my mother, Ollie said to Seth. She held up her wristwatch. My mother is already with me, helping me. Maybe she's a little easier to hear in this weird ghost world of yours, but I'm pretty sure she never left me. Not at all, just like Kathy Webster never left her kids. So you're a liar and a fraud, and we're all going home. She was sobbing as she spoke. Olivia, cried her mom's voice, once more, faint now. Well, said Seth, that's a shame, because of course if you don't make a deal to get out, you aren't getting out at all. You've already parted the bargain, you know. If you won't make a new one, well then, you'll be my servant too. Below, Ollie could hear creaking as the first of the scarecrows began climbing up the ladder. You'll stand in the rain by day and walk my world at night. Keep the maze open and do my bidding. No, said Ollie, absolutely not. Until the mist becomes rain. Well, Ollie wasn't about to conjure rain from the sky, so she did the only thing she could think of, which was to pull her water bottle from its side pouch and fling the scattering of drops at the first scarecrow coming up the ladder. The scarecrow screamed, a human scream. The cat hissed and jumped at Ollie, clawing at her face. Ollie threw it off, and then Seth was there, tall and terrible, with his mouth a great starving maw, but he still wasn't attacking her. Ollie realized, just trying to scare her. In a voice still thick with tears, Ollie said, I haven't made a bargain with you. If you made a deal with Miss Webster, then it was a cheat, a fraud. She gave you what she couldn't give us, and I'm taking us back. Seth's mouth closed, and Ollie knew she was right. He was a cold, tricky thing, but there were rules, and he had broken one, taking what someone didn't have the right to give. I can only give you power over me, said Ollie, more and more sure. You can't take it. You said you'd give me water. Well, I have that too. Seth looked less human now. His grin still took up half his face, but his eyes moved were more malevolent. You little fool, he said. I'm older than you. I'm stronger than you. So, said Ollie, if you could have made me a scarecrow, you'd have done it by now. But we hid in a small spaces at night, and the scarecrows couldn't get to us. And now I'm making no bargain with you, not even for the deepest wish of my heart, so you can't do anything to me. She splashed water on the next climbing scarecrow. Another human scream. There. They are the door, said Seth, speaking fast. He definitely looked afraid now. What will you do when they are all human? The door will close. But Ollie smiled back at Seth. Do you know what else I'm pretty sure exists on both worlds? A book called Small Spaces. Because it was bound and printed in Boston. It would be really weird if they only printed one copy. I have my copy right here. I guess you forget about that sort of thing when you're super old corn maze monster. They stared each other down. Seth spoke first. Will you bet your life on it, he whispered. Ollie's mouth was bone dry. Yes, she said. Seth bowed suddenly. Check and mate to you, he said. Clever girl. Ollie warily said nothing, and Seth's eyes were almost a look of wonder. I'll be back, he said. He didn't say it like a promise, but a fact. Nevertheless, I thank you. I do not lose very often, he added with a quirk on his mouth. There's something you will want of me one day. There will be things I want, said Olivia Adler, but never of you. Call my hound by his name, said Seth, and he will come. And then the smiling man smiled at her one more time and bowed again courtly, and then disappeared. Oh my goodness, that was a long chapter, Cougars. Tune in tomorrow to see what happens next and how they get out at chapter 23. We only have 2 short chapters left, only about 10 pages. So we'll finish the book tomorrow, or Monday, I'm sorry. Have a great day, everyone.